white cottontail, fuchsia first buds on a couple small prickly pears up on Hohokam, corner of Montezuma, where the gringos planted their flags, Casita Place, better put soap in your mouth, toilet breath. Meanwhile, the Palo Verdes thrash in wind and some rocks. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. Your description here. Earwax samadhi. Lulled into the buzz on St. Dot's porch, afternoon buzzing heat, and for several days thereafter, faintly, buzzing ears, faint faraway caw of a crow or a couple crows or ears, leading you down or out or in to where there's almost nothing. Bzzz. An ice cave 1,000,000 miles thick or the summer rerun. Bzzz. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet. Something, something, the pastoral eglantine, then the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Please tell my mother and father not to worry. Why don't you tell them yourself? Okay. After great pain, a formal feeling comes, then bzzz, and the heart opens. Don't worry, Mom and Dad. Case 341 or 778. What deed is theirs unto the general nature? What plan they severally retard or further? Unknown. Then a couple other things. 1, 2, the night was blowing the stars around the sleeping bag. This is the story. I'd stepped out to pee under the night's fierce sky like a giant invisible flapping tarp. The wind was splashing the stars around. We're not fucking around here, Tenney. I rushed back inside, slid back in the bag to hide, but the wind and the scattered stars sneaked in there too. So I lay there inside along with the violent night, like quiet Ivor, not feeling entirely exempt and protected. Isn't that how it is, you used to say? And it augurs incipient transformation. When Dongshan was leaving, Yunyan said, if you leave, it will be difficult for us to see each other again. Dongshan replied, it will be difficult for us not to see each other. And another time, I don't want to lose my dead mother, I said. You said, there's no place for her to go. Can you feel that? Thank you.
Wow.
Yay. And next is Karen Brennan.
Me, I believe.
Yes, you. Karen Brennan.
Okay.
I thought I said that.
Thank you. You did. You did. I'm nervous because I'm actually I've got to look at my screen to read my poem, so I have to figure it out. Anyway, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you always, Charles and Cynthia and the rest of the board and Tenney and Steve and, David and everybody for having this and bringing us together as community, because now more than ever, we need it. So I'm just going to read 2 poems, not very long. I've been writing a lot of poems lately, just off the cuff, as it were. So the first poem is called Lullaby. A solitary person walking down the street. The person waves and I wave. We are masked. When another person walks toward me, also masked, I wave first. Without masks, we are a little blind to one another. I am walking at midnight. Beautiful shadows fall across the street like ghosts falling among us. The street, a calm, dark tabula rasa. How long will we be masked? We are 6 feet apart, ships passing in the night, white sails like masks. And this is the second one, which is called Open Book. I opened a book and it began with a confession. Someone had stolen another book and the fast train that ran through it, and here we were landsliding into one another, me, the recipient of terrible news. I opened a book and someone said, Karen, we are doomed. And another person said, I wish someone would lug us into another era. And the first person said, if only we had a recipe. And everywhere the crabgrass spread like crabgrass and took over the sorrowful words, and no one called out. I opened a book in a museum filled with photographs of chainsaws transformed into candles, and someone lit one, and harmonious light filled the room of the book, but it was a mirage. And then someone got up from a sofa and opened a window, and there was one perfect cloud, the cloud of unknowing, someone cried, and I cried back, I read that book ages ago. I opened a book on a Sunday, and a man in a plaid trench coat lit a cigar, and the trees were thin and melancholy like pen and ink drawings of trees, and there were too many semicolons suggesting indecision. So I opened a new book, and there was the Big Dipper zipping across the first page, and I wondered what could possibly be next. Because where do we go from here, from the stars that no longer exist to this microscopic dot of time I can hardly believe in, where we are settled as if we were settled? I opened a book, and the sheer weight of the book made me sleepy. And I saw my own face, the history of my fragility written there in complex sentences with subordinate clauses, and I could hardly bear to look. I opened a book, and a woman wearing a jacket approached from another page, having sprung the mortar of words, and she said, "Excuse me, do you know the way?" Thank you.
Thank you. Next, coming to us from Nova Scotia is Johanna Skibsrud.
Yep, you're unmuted.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I can't believe how nervous I am. It's so strange. Some of you know that I have been working on, or a few of you know, I've been working for the last little while on a series of poems in the voices of historical women who have served as mediums in various ways, spiritual or material or biological. And I thought I'd read one of them. This is in the voice of Clytemnestra. It's called Hell Is This Waiting. Thank you for being out there. Hell is this waiting for men to return from their bloody foreign wars. Enter, King, let me embrace you. Let me extend in offering this made thing, this single cloth. You who've been met with good fortune and a steady wind, who've raised hands in supplication, triumph, who've raised daughters, sons, tell me again it was the only choice. Enter, embrace me. With your bare hands and in my sister's name, the blood of our daughters still stinking on your skin, we have fed too long and been half starved, but I would not eat now. Come, embrace me. Tell me again it was a fair bargain and the only choice. I have waited too long. Come. It is not a deception. I promised nothing, was taken, was granted. My fate like my hands bound. The blood of our daughter already coursing through me, already beneath my skin. Come, leave your spear at the door, enter. Listen to the scratching of the sumac, the tip-tapping of the olive branches on the pane. Listen to the bleating of a sheep being shorn, a distant bell. It is not a deception. I promised nothing. There was no vow. If then in your absence I fed the flame of fury, if then in your absence I invited it into my bed, if I plotted, fanned the flames, I burned, if I wanted to burn, it was not a deception because there was no vow. There was a daughter. There was a choice made, a prayer raised to an unanswering wind. I'm not hungry, could not eat now. Come, let me embrace you. Let me wrap you in this single cloth. Let me plunge my hands into the fold, untie the knot, unravel the weave. Let me fly like loose thread or down, cling unwaveringly to the bodies of sheep in fields. You who've asked for and been granted protection, who've made a fair bargain and more than paid the price. You whose ship has sailed, who's been sped home again on gentle winds, whose bare hands have raised hell with the blood of daughters, sons, come. There is no way forward save through this single open door. Leave the girl in the yard. She knows. It's no mystery. Women always do. Men, though, they come willingly, are indiscriminate, will sit at any table, suck with voracious appetite. Come, we've fed enough. It was a choice made, and as for every made thing, an end. Let me extend to you in offering the future, fashioned by my own hands. It is here among us. It is latent, granted. It is a body. It is a single cloth. Thanks.
Yay! Thank you very much. And now, also from Nova Scotia, not by accident that these two are both there, John Melillo.
Oh. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, everybody, for hosting this and for having us. So excited to share here. I wanted to begin by reading a kind of long quote from Etel Adnan from an essay she wrote called Voyage, War, and Exile. She says, I came to think, which is no consolation, that our predicament is not only our own. Amidst ecological disaster, economic predatory tactics, and political bankruptcy, a human being, wherever, appears to be a fallen angel, an angel exiled from the old paradise as well as from the future. Exile is not the sad privilege of only a few individuals. It has become synonymous with the human condition, but with slight difference that some of us are eaten by this illness in ways evident and definitive, while all the others are not yet conscious of what they already are suffering from. We are, as contemporaries of this day and age, all very, very close to each other, but very few are those who share with us that knowledge. So we are very, very close to each other still. I just published this month a book called The Poetics of Noise from Dada to Punk, which is about poetry and noise in the 20th century. And I just wanted to read a sentence from it, from the middle of it. The specter of noise that emerges through the mask of voice is the materialized sound of mishearing, sounds out of place in both space and time, sounds that break up sequences and articulations. I don't know if you all can hear behind me, but there's a cat playing with a poster that's adding some extra noise and disarticulation. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to share is a short fragment of a longer project called The Mouth is a Resonant Field, which is a series of reflections on sound and mouths that's going to be connected with a piece, with a record that's coming out on 2182 Recording Company this year. A song isn't over. It's a way of moving your mouth, the body. What's the memory of the mouth? Another machine hears it and plays it back. The air moves around, the noise we move around in, blocks of sound over time. The mouth is a chamber, a field, a space, a grave, an echo, tree, seaweed, grass. What happens to the phrase? Telephone, telephono, autograph. Sound again. Language, an archive of sounds, of mouth sounds. Gesture, method, plethora, form. Wave the ocean, wave the sea. Locate I, love you some. Wherein teeth and eyes bite. Harmonica, careless love. Do pity my case. How you sound? Amiri Baraka. I make a poetry with what I feel is useful and can be saved out of all the garbage of our lives. Laureen Niedecker. We are what the seas have made us. longingly immense. Thanks, everybody.
Yay, that's lovely. Amazing. Thank you very much. And now. I would love to welcome Kimberly Alidio.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to read from my new book from Belladonna Press. It's called Once Teeth, Bones, Coral. And for those of you who might not know, Belladonna is a feminist, experimental, politically engaged small press in Brooklyn. And I would give much more patter, but I want to read more than patter. So I'll just say it's kind of a cross between language poetry and new narrative. Tonight, soft skein, moon, white, ink, night. Ocean, land, ebbs, flows, solar lights, strung rails. No product, no moral, acclimating monsoons, absence, oscillate. Break, listen, spin stories, leaving fragments, gather, feel free, pretend, hugging, enjoy, rush. Talk, arrival, summer, lightning bugs, lawnmowers, day, pie, nights, stop cooling, spring, cicada, fancy name, cricket, tell, hot, loud. Call it a science, trust, enter a sentence, beloved, rock, belly, rooms, watery, flowers, bears repeating, fantasy, closer than discipline, taut chord, doesn't send, word, distance, waves, breathe, ship, chest, sense a coming, joke for the dinner table, interference, formal symmetry, mid, ocean, mountain, cast figment against forecasted loss, set a watch by. Wax paper, monsoon, cloud, black, thin, smoke, strike, clap. Utterance, whispery flash, skip. Money fell out of my mouth with every bump and pothole ago. Moving water. Sky vast, opens, past, hold body. Year driving, aquiferous fault zone, desert, direction, sky, post-text, post-humanist, utopia, experience, intimate, lyric, openness, refusal, represented. Desert, cities, seams, butches, wait tables, La Malinche, baby, dike, buses, village inn, serves, carnitas, breakfast, mama, nurse, looks, every woman, city, family. Shotgun coming off, Mexican Coke, high, woodland, slope, pens, speed bumps, escarpment rises, steep decline, gently asymmetrical resolution. Exit city, ask, leave, midnight, depart. Whisper first, time, phrase, barth, truly phatic. Low murmur, purr, echo, non-content. Utopia, literal. Nothing I say, hive, voices, cascade, distract, singular memories. Riverine sweat, tears, saliva, mucus, vaginal discharge. Days, end, slip, bed of distance, kindness. Thank you.
This is so great, everybody. Thank you. Next is Devota.
Hello. Thank you, POG. Thank you, everyone, for having us into your living rooms, into your offices, at your kitchen tables with you tonight. This is an excerpt from Greater Than She. And if the book had a tagline, it would be another woman suffering from another mysterious climate illness and the age of mass extinction. And it's riffing off the literary genre autofiction, but I call this autoimmune fiction. She thinks we're just like ants, but with more random and disturbing goals. They left Kure on a bus for the island of Kurahashi. Her ears are filled. On the second story of a ryokan overlooking the inland sea, where they always dream of being, she is sitting on the tatami with the windows open, from which she can see no shore, only the sea, which begins beneath her and is beyond where the clouds and fog keep the rest from her. She floats in this narrow window of ocean, which is placid now, with only one small island emerging from the fog, the same color as the sea, the same color as the sky. The world is delineated by unpungent lines, separating what appears alone, needing no separation. Her mother tells her that two guys always flying to London popped their eardrums, said it's not bad, just painful. There are two red ants in her red canvas shoes. Maybe we are exactly alike. Time heals. Time transforms pain. The clock is off key, but within tune. The spider is on the inside of the glass, but the poison is outside. When someone says or thinks poison, her eyes no longer allow reading. In Taiwan, she'd go to Cafe Lino and read Nietzsche's notebooks, tearing apart a Post-it note and using the bits and pieces to mark certain entries on the pages. I don't concede that the I is what thinks. Instead, I take the I itself to be a construction of thinking, of the same rank as matter, thing, subject, substance, individual, purpose, number. In other words, to be only a regulative fiction with the help of which a kind of constancy and thus knowability is inserted into, invented into a world of becoming. It is only thinking that posits the I. She can exist then, can preserve her I, even if sick forever and unable to read and write, so long as she can still think. Every Japanese novel I've ever read is about someone needing to recuperate at the seashore, Brandon says. I'm dizzy, she says, but means something else. A 3-beer drunk and stoned, she walks gliding, like in the airport on the moving walkway, those flat escalators, taking a step and being swept forward at an unnatural angle. The ice melts in her glass and smells like the sea. She has her period and sits on the toilet, noticing a beetle on its back in the water and deciding not to flush first, and without even considering rescuing it, as it looks like a beetle, but on its back it reminds her of the kissing bug, or could be a bulbous, hard-shelled spider. She begins to leak, wet yarn being pulled from her. The red liquid is soundless and spreads around in the bowl like smoke rings, concentric circles expanding. She looks between her legs and sees it reach the beetle. The beetle reaches back, as if it is something it can grab onto, a life raft from a skin graft, a leaf from fetal mucus. Tonight on the beach during summer festival, the fireworks will scare her. She will cover both ears and run back to the bathroom, wrapping a rolled towel around her ears like a bandana. She feels she has no ears, that the explosions enter her through open doors. Her dad died sick when she was young, unendingness. The letters to people are not people. Thank you all.
Thank you. And next, and one of the several people who are new here tonight to POG is Anton Russell.
First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge we are on occupied territory. The Tohono, the Yaqui, and Apache people, the indigenous folks of this land. May that be a reflection for us in terms of how we can show up. I'd like to acknowledge that spoken words discovered and invented by Black women, and rap is invented by Black men. So my piece tonight called Blame kind of merges the two of those. And I'd like to close after that with just a little something for my daughters. So with Blame. How could I blame him? His situation is so backside, got two backsides fronting like opportunity, but every gain's a backslide. He reaches, ruining, while bound in punity. Tell me how that tries. Give itself therapy so many times they barely keep his cell asleep before his sleep disturbed for disturbing the peace. How could I blame him? Defense prosecuted, even judge stay muted. It appears that a cover in a summary should do it. Don't bother asking a brother his name before you ruin whatever status he's given by being born a Newman. Got sun-kissed skin with a king's origin, on a slave's path, but a determination to win what stays out of grasp. How could I blame him? Saw how his woman became his greatest hurt from help she was first. Her lips kiss the curse, and what's worse is she lurks with the lurch that he struggles with. Can't shake the dust from the jacket that he's muzzled with. Yet he sees purpose in the struggle. Yeah, that's my nigga.
Daddy.
He'll never buckle.
Daddy.
Let it be life and
Daddy,
double. He'll remain humble.
Listen to me, Dad.
How could I blame him?
Daddy.
1 second. Yes.
Oh, okay. He's happy.
All right.
I thought she was mad.
No, I'm not at all. This next one's for you. It's for my daughters and International Daughters Day. Just a little dedication. Maybe you can help me. You can help me? Brown skin girl, your skin just like pearls, back against the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Seeking brown skin girls, your skin just like pearls, you're back against the world. I never trade you for anybody else. Singing. Chance for you.
Can we do that?
Thank you, Anton, and thank you.
Anton's
this
right.
is just terrific. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And okay, I could stay there, but I have to go on next. Also, a new Tucson friend of POG, Kelsi Vanada.
Thank you, Anton, and thanks for the duet there at the end. It's really, really nice to be among poets and other writers. Tonight, I'm going to read 2 poems from this chapbook. My first chapbook, it's called Rare Earth. It came out earlier this year in the middle of a very rare moment on Earth. And then I'll read a translation to finish, 3 short poems. I recuse my set piece. We are in the soft, warm center of summer. You come closer and say, oh, it's colors. They get on the wind like a scent. Oriole or redwing, you hardly knew. My reaction's admirable too. Watch me in the blind, I'm showing off mine. Every single one keep shining, side by each, so we have them to hand. 20 sightings says, the life I've got, I want. Or we're much put upon by sky. Under it, I saw blight on all things, all useless in the waver. A small tree standing in a shorn field, shorn forest. It was a birch. What else to say beyond what you? In a string of slow names, I found yours to make a tongue turn thunder. Joint trunked, balled up, best bunched. I know we use what we need now. Time to set this set piece down. I am bound to tell you. We fix the boundaries. It's fallen to us to fix them, all trusses and leftovers and sticks. The land is bound to shift, the posts to sink and lean, and wires to sag. We drag a wire in the dust behind the truck to draw it from its coil. It tries to bound away, goes straight. At the midpoint of the boundary where your place bounds on mine, we meet and look across the line and both fix right. We stretch the wire tight, we splice the breaks with bits of spare, then bind it to the posts and sense each other through the line. Not mine. We're both bound up in this. We're grabbing at the pieces, pushing from our grasp. We'll insist on we. Imagine we can keep it up. Homebound, some say. I'm bound for I don't know. And this is just a short translation. It's a poem by Peruvian poet Alvaro Lasso. He was born in Azerbaijan, and then the family moved back to Peru when he was about 2 years old. This poem in my translation is called Nobility. When it comes to decapitations, I just have to say one thing. It's tough to learn to perfect a smile for the executioner. The executioner's nobility, like a beauty pageant, has been forged by long tradition. Also present is the public. They haven't paid admission. They've endorsed justice without understanding it. They listen to the leader's voice without any sign of approval whatsoever, just waiting to find out what a body with no head is like. But the show lasts only seconds. They know this. Think about second chances, about past lives, parallel worlds, the beyond. And meanwhile, all the great ideologies can fit into a refrigerator. That's why a poem isn't a poem if it doesn't know how to suspend death. That's why the axe never makes it to the neck, but it's there at the point of dismembering it. Thanks, POG.
Thank you. That was great. And next, I want to welcome one of probably POG's longest lasting friends in Tucson from pretty much the beginning, Richard Tavenner.
Thanks, Charles, and thanks, Kelsi, and welcome. I'm Richard Tavenner, poet and an electrician. Body of water, a small lake to stand beside. No wind and no ice, but you know it is winter. The water cold, the fish still. It will be enough for now, this small privacy. The path bends from sight. The water mimics the sky. The sun will set, the moon rise. Our spring plant. April's green shoots up from limbs of old growth toward winter-killed twigs. In bed, we wake side by side, rising like sap in thick roots. Well, spring turns to summer pretty quickly here in Tucson. Here's two summer work poems, both haiku. Swamp cooler repair on roof. In her absence, coming up through the cooler, the scent of perfume. Salt. Salt of my body, dried white upon a black shirt. The rains have not come. First rain. During the first rain, after many months of none, the stones by the path where we walk each day, my love, undress in all their colors. Here's an old one. 20 years ago, I wrote it. Caitlin asleep by her mother. And I can still lift her, daughter born in my midlife, youngest of us asleep by her mother. I can still stay up late at night, reading and writing, and then in the dark room, bending down noiselessly, slide my arms under her 11-year-old blossoming in flannel body and tightening my torso, lift and cradle and hug, her hair and girl scent warm by my face. I can do this gently without waking them one gliding arc. Sometimes her arm reaches round my neck. I've already pulled her sheets and covers back. Her bed is ready, so through the door we go. I can still, in my outstretched arms, lower her slowly down, and she curls as into a nest in a tuft of grass. A couple of more work poems here. Worked late, 21 September. On the low-rent street, lovers walking hand in hand in the evening. The last summer sunset fades, and I turn my truck to home. I'll close with this one here. My tools. By day, my tools travel with me, but at night they call to me in my sleep. They are jealous of my wife. They get even with me and go and hide and laugh when I curse myself looking for them, thinking it my fault. Thank you all.
Thanks, Richard. Poetry can be electricity, right? Sometimes.
Has been for a long time.
Next is a fine poet and one of our POG board members for the last year or so now, Lisa Periale Martin.
All right, thank you. What a feast of work that everyone is sharing. Thanks so much. Tenney, I need to thank you for having peeing in your poem, because it's putting me at ease for my poem. Equinox Eve. Reading picture books, listening to Shanto Bigay share a heart-achingly poignant poem about his older brother. Go to bed, night owl. You want to hike in the morning. When is the sunrise? Will it be cool? Will there be clouds? Take pills, brush teeth, then a last pee. Sitting there in the dark, the true night owl calls out to me from the alley. Treasured 10 minutes just before midnight, telling me we are night owls. Sharing this turning tonight in the darkness. Whisper of autumn in every hoot. Whole note, half note whole. Held a little longer. Grown great horned chick, holding court full 10 minutes. That kind of magic competes with dreams. All the stories calling, keystrokes, ink, my imagination rubbing against tree bark, staring at all my recent owl pictures because I'd learned a new word for their feathered tufts that look like ears. That word, it made me laugh because it sounds so made up. No, can't possibly be real. Plumicorns. Seriously. Then you announce your plumicorned presence, not in a storied forest, but my funky alleyway, in this slightly broken, dust-deviled, minor dumpster fire of a city I love. Night owl to night owl. That's it. I'm going to yield my time to
Well, and next is another of our POG board members, and one who I want to thank because he's responsible for a lot of what you see on our website, Facebook event pages, flyers, and much more. One of our creative forces right now, Cameron Quan Louie.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. Well, I just have one poem for you. I started gardening when I moved back to Tucson from Seattle because you can actually have a backyard in Tucson. And I have been doing it for a couple of years now, and I'm still not very good at it. Like, I think I've grown maybe one tomato the entire time. So really the only gift it has given me is this poem. So I'll read that for you now. It's called Box Garden. Come to a gradual acceptance that your tomatoes will disappear. Ripening one day, stalks stripped naked next. There is no sense relevant to a garden. Welcome your daily failure to observe most of the writhing, insect, water, root beneath the shallow bed of cedar mulch. Every morning, you will kill a lime green caterpillar, and every morning, it will return to bring your world to ruin. Your rectangle attention is to blame, wanting points of reference. Between favorable and catastrophic, work proceeds. Soil neutral to slightly alkaline. Where is everything going? You will no longer wonder. A stranger at the office gives you 7 exaggerated lemons. You begin to wonder again. Months pass, rain precedes the day you give up hope for good. Mourn only the effort, grief macerated by a new, more reliable subtraction. My advice is this: expect to learn nothing from error. There is only trial, which must be tolerated, heard, like thirst. Thanks.
Nice. And next is POG's friend, my friend, all of our friends, Tyler Meier.
Hi, all of my friends. Thanks for having me here. Nice to see faces through our rectangles from wherever we are. I'm happy to be trying to write some poems these days, and so this is one that I've been working on called Basin and Range. 1. All day, I have been trying to decide if the serious blooms are for profit or not. Now the bats fill up the coming darkness like electricity in a wire, and the darkness reminds me that the ground is just an average pop song. Living feels like our bodies are needles traversing the frequency. 2. What I have wanted for a name. Blue that outstrips its bird. What air does inside a trombone. Sometimes the stars scramble and you lose all your sailors. Bougainvillea bloom as prosthetic for a brain. 3. Sing me the song where the small animal that is just beyond the edge of my iris starts to dismantle a mesquite pod, undoing it the way one word can dominate the system of a sentence, outshining all the other language, rearranging the normal order by the seduction of what we can make a mind attend to, or how the taking apart can remind us who owns oblivion, can create a right relation between the song and the precise moment the song leaves the body forever. Once you, now for a moment, part of everything. I suspect the problem with the problem of memory starts there, but I am still in the middle of my life. When we touch, I sometimes later look at your shoulder, like some kind of signature I am astonished to see came from my hand. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would love to hear next some poems from Maryrose Larkin.
Hi. It's so nice to see all your sweet faces. So, I have 3 minutes. So, I'm here and I'm sitting with my first book, and I'm going to read all the 25-word poems that I can in 3 minutes from my first book that I never read, because I now try to think in pages length poems, poem length books, and in some ways I think that might be folly. Anyways, 3 minutes. This one's untitled. Is muscle and fragile, is difficult, stung, breath and dialect, is ochre in love, is truant, texture chronicles converge, if the body is the text, an atlas of crimson invisible, if. The next one is called Test Garden, which is about Portland. I wrote it when I first moved there. Test Garden. Have I forgotten to occur? We are a rose hour or a swimming pool full of sky. Orpheus seed and the whole of sidewalks wet stars. I rode crows into the sky today, a winter flock, radius, song, and eclipse. My hands bloom here through winter, bloom through the belly up. This one's also entitled. Seraphim plunge between coffee and breviary, neither or nor, or do they waver? Feathers in my saucer, para-o protect what is binary as garbage and grass. This is called Arc, and actually I wrote it for my husband. To propose, kiss, or an arriving is agate and trance, a paper knot. In ink it is Eve's invention, or a sea's nest, an arc, pears ripe or rarer, to enter a stranger, river and stars. These next two are actually very short. You probably can't see, but they're very, very tiny. So they're both untitled. Crow apostles vie for silver, a winter octave, a Cartesian dance, words less tossin than costume. Fifth sun. Night, an artifact, she scratches out a world, but words being city burst, stammer, blossom, notation, subtracting, a woman inhabited is an interior part, flying. And I'll end with alphabet walking. Sentence, a waver, a scar floating over the possible, as if form is broken in the rage of music. Division, voracious, deception, surface, elude, beyond. Vision, it is as if it is. Lament, letters glisten, ritual in telephone wires. Softly, letters glisten, ritual of light. We are walking the distance from here to random. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is another one of our POG board members, and also gathered in this virtual room are many really good poets who are also really good teachers of poetry, and one of them certainly is Stephen Salmoni. Stephen.
It's me, right? My next. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad to see all of you. This is very interesting and wonderful and beautiful POG and Friends. I'm glad to see all the new people and Michael and so many wonderful people. So I'm going to read something from a piece called Kos, which I read a little bit of this last POG and Friends last year. I'll read a little bit here, and it's brand new. So a long sea that appears, folding any. In the footnotes, it said, at rest in the field. Your ship reflects the impression that there is no one to complete the passage. Do not move you among the angels. to look up from one of your bodies, your singular body. Our translated paper, not just a panoramic stream, the sense passing from one, not to forget, but to arrive, washed upon the outer banks, angels in the margin, even as some had carved their own. Again, this is true. The feeling came, I've had enough of the finale. Or I conclude, as a matter for the melodic traces of seabirds, it's been a pleasure so far. This vision, immediate to itself, different from your birds, not that any of them will read. Glass sings along a hollow scale. What can one say in the morning when everything has changed? Still, reddened light, radiant glass, so hollow. Lying in the gesture, shifting together as one, yet somehow abrupt upon further consideration. I want to change the used to be to the time so ordered. But is this a sentence or the finality of birds? Nevertheless, all is excluded. Yet these trees, these dispersals are not. The night's inclusion is not to be, one said in closing. For its part, the bird asked, where is the figure more alike than not? If I wrote, they were in love, I would be the same.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, and look at my list. Oh, our next reader is the wonderful Reed Dickson.
Thanks, Charles. I think I'm going to build off of Stephen's poem here and read a poem about birds. This is an ode for a bird that I grew up with in Indiana that we can actually see here in Tucson over at the Sweetwater Wetlands on East Prince Road. If you haven't been there, strongly recommend it. It's a gorgeous space. Who knew we had wetlands in Tucson? But we do. Anyway, this is called Bird of Birds. And I will attempt this poem, which is a little bit difficult to read. Red-winged blackbird, up on the wire, sacrosanct be thy song. Real red, real red, real red. Flash us your wing bursts of red and gold, and forgive us diethyl parathion, as we forgive those who diethyl against us. We're not so forgiving. And rouse us not unto epaulets, but deliver us from we and I, real red. For thine's the horizon, power line, mud-thatched home to the skies forever. And the poem is linked with a couple pages of notes because I'm kind of a hybridist. And I'm just going to read two of those that feel relevant during these times. A note on nests. Red-winged blackbirds actually beak weave their nests, after which they plaster them and they mud them and line them with grass. And I read that a nest picked apart in the 1930s was said to be made of 34 strips of willow bark, 142 cattail leaves, and 705 grass blades. Just sort of miraculous. And then a note on parathion. After it was concocted by the Nazis and appropriated by the Allies, parathion spread like wildfire. In its heyday in the 60s, it arched over about 7 million pounds per year in America, killing not only our beautiful pollinating bugs, but my aforementioned bird. And then in 1992, after many American workers became violently ill, the EPA finally declared that parathion wouldn't be used on fruit, nuts, vegetable crops, corn, wheat, most everything we eat. And parathion, like other organophosphates, continues of course, to be produced, but it's produced for other purposes by the folks that make our headache medicine, like Bayer Aspirin, who now owns Monsanto, in service of national security, in other words, as a nerve agent. So all politics aside, if such an act were possible, this poem, including its footnotes, is foremost an ode to birds, my red-winged blackbird, and our quiet capacities for reverence, for pause, and for pulling away just a moment from our sense of loss, from this strange fight against fascism, and from our strange isolations. Thanks.
Where's he? Come here.
Thank you, Reed.
You come here. Come here.
We want to thank you, Reed, but I can't do it the way you do. But that was beautiful. And now from Reed to Farid Matuk. Farid Matuk, is Farid still here?
I think Will is next. Is that correct?
Oh, no. Well, on my list, Farid is next and then Will.
Oh.
But if Farid is not here right now, then Will.
Where?
I think I just saw a note from Farid that said he wanted to be unmuted.
To be unmuted?
Okay, now I can unmute myself, and I
there.
Have.
Okay.
Thank you so much to everybody working with POG for keeping this ritual alive. We really appreciate it. I'm putting a link in the chat to the website of a visual artist that I got to collaborate with. Her name is Nancy Friedemann Sanchez. She's a Colombian artist. I hope that you get to explore her work a little bit. I'm going to read a piece from that collaboration, and part of her process is relevant to the poem. So I'll read this explanation of part of her process. Our pages were never empty. Nancy painted their backdrops to evoke mopa mopa, which is a resin that indigenous Amazonian artisans use to approximate the lacquered boxes from China and Japan so coveted by Spanish colonists. In her multimedia installations, Nancy includes sheets of industrial aluminum and Tyvek, the polyethylene fibers that protect buildings during construction, onto which she layers mopa mopa as a backdrop for her intricate imagery of flower and lace. Coating this resin onto the world-building materials of our day, she freights the generative imagination with layers of acquisitive and extractive colonial desire. These layers accrue, and when polished to a gloss, they reflect. And I'm grateful to Anton for reminding us about living on occupied land. This project, the poems I wrote for this project, I guess, in some ways are thinking about the energies that animate occupation, energies around how we relate to generations, how we bequeath estates through generations, and energies around gender. The last note I'll offer is there's just a passing reference to the Proud Boys. They're a contemporary American neo-fascist group, and one of their beliefs is no fap, which is slang for no masturbation. They believe that they should not masturbate so that they can control their energies, so that they can, in turn, control and lead the women in their lives, the families that they're parts of, and the nation that they feel they must make great again. So just the one poem, it's called Scale Up, and it's dedicated to my friend, the poet Fadi Judah. Dignified or bruised with looking at a giant inflatable swan in my pool, large as our times, dares all ancestors to scale up. Desert heat waves folding air forward and back into a fixed point, a hold on our mother's adulthood like it's the thing from which most of time will run away. The purest gold rings I inherit, my grandmother's bracelets stamped with the scales of snakes, We had so much. Ideas, tasks that don't really ask for names, to burn in some America's idea of presentness, peeled, cheap rubies from my mother's ring, loosely given in a pouch. Terribly enjoined to the bros of first settlement, every day still in their dedicated habit for one another, men love me. Ask about my American sentence shapes, like barefoot, sweet thing, Proud Boys, no fap, the New York Times, a people's bad examples of transiting elements. Now, crush the buds in the old way, in boiling water to make the resin stretched with a friend into thinning sheets from our mouths and fingers comes a lacquer, where to render one of the pretender gods. Scaled to look like the layers of depth the men heard they wanted to see. If our treatments could rescue local wood into a high gloss forevering, exactly like the phrase, cultivate your power, brings news to each new theater of war, resting in my nerve to write about it. Tear gas by way of drone, and the lacquered frame of my mirror wanting to be polished. Now say, enjoyable morning, to have left a nation's bed, shining, basically eagle-shaped, tasting of a sugar that delays what's sweet. Sorry, not sorry, for the dirt on my feet. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. The next reader is another one of our POG faithful directors here, Will Stanier.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Farid. I'm happy to read after a teacher of mine. And thank you to POG. I'm happy to read with everybody and all the great people here. Please let me know if my Wi-Fi cuts out here. I'm looking on my screen very quickly. So I'm going to read two very short poems. They're both sonnets, and they were written over the summer, and they're both written to specific people and gather specific conversations into a poem. So I'll just read the first one, which is a shorter sonnet, and then I'll intro the second poem as well. But this is the first poem called Final Destiny 9000. No florists in baseball. No crying either. Yet that's a rule you probably knew already. Why no crying? Because of the liquid properties of tears, advanced aerophysics, etc. And no florists, because florists are tyrants of their craft. Things would get testy in the bullpen. Here I am, awaiting our breathtaking calamity. I was here last week and the week before that. I called you on the phone. How are you? I asked. I'm fine, you said. But you weren't. You had a splinter in your toe. And then this is the second sonnet. And this sonnet collects language from different poems and different poets in a few different places. And then it also maybe inhabits the character of the friend that I'm writing to, especially at the end. But it's called Dark Sonnet. Each waking moment is the first. You put in everything you can and then you're done. Sunny Antarctic light puts a flash on early morning joggers. Although I've never been there before, under the ice, except in that one movie by Herzog. Movie people, aloof and glamorous, not about to fraternize with us minor Americans, but then again, what do I know? Frequent, non-parallel things, hummingbirds the size of hamsters, the kind of pet you can't just freeze and place a leash around, regardless of your gusto. I place a darkness around myself like parentheses or a faux feather boa, a decoration, a secret place, a souvenir from the wrong side of town with which I conduct my army of suitors, for I am their every heartbreak. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. That was great.
That was a better
We have 3 more readers, and then I wanted to just say that for anyone interested, there is going to be after this reading conversation, hangout, whatever you want to do. But it's like a separate event because of the way this works through our website. And I think David will be giving information on that if you didn't receive something earlier today from Tenney Nathanson. So I hope some of you stay for that. And the next reader is Cynthia Hogue.
Well, I want to join in with everyone who has thanked Charles and Cynthia and Tenney and the whole POG board, and also to magnificent reading. Gosh, it's inspiring. I'm going to read one poem. A couple years ago, there was a special issue in Michigan Quarterly on Europe 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And I thought I might have something to say about that, which actually turned out to mostly be collaged in from an essay that Sylvain Gallet, the European economist, wrote on biodiversity. So I took his title and I added a few things you might recognize. On the preservation of biodiversity in the European Union. The epigraph is from Sylvain. It is the stated intention of the European Union to protect biodiversity so that catastrophic changes caused by its loss are averted. 1. After the wall fell, there could be union, European Union, and in this way a decision was made from older directives to protect birds and ecosystems. How old was the first bird directive? Very old, old as the hill, and mandatory for any member state to conclude that humans transform the earth we live on. Interfere in its cycles of evolution, its equilibrium. Question the costs of the changes we trigger. Ignore the economic consequences of inaction. 2. When the union decided that contracts mattered, climate conventions all over the place gave birth to huge Pantagruelian projects to protect Earth by land, sea, and laughter. For as Rabelais wrote, laughter's the right response when leaders conjure lies. A braying laugh staunches corruption's spout. 3. The union could then draw contracts on paper and sometimes canvas when graphic. As Rabelais contemplated so poignantly, laughter replenishes the lungs with a surfeit of oxygen. Economics offered tools to analyze the results, who and what benefited, carefully calibrated. 4. Pantagruelian projects created thousands of protected sites and jobs in the union that contracts justified and economics explained. The value that ecosystem services added, clean waters, clean air, etc., translated in a mold all understood, high returns. Of laughter's ancient ritual in nature, the value-added features restoring Earth's balance, bathing us in forest, scents, and rare animal sightings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, so the next reader, who is also the penultimate reader, the next to last reader, is myself. And so I will read from a work I've just been working on the last 4 weeks that has kind of 16 panels, and I'm going to try to read 3 of them if I can take that much time, and I'll watch my clock. And they work with and through typography, which is something I practice but don't often write in relation to. It's titled Metal, Light, Mark. Some readers notice no difference between capital I and lowercase l in sans serif fonts. Some notice very little difference in those letters in serif fonts, not to mention J, which enters the alphabet at a later time in history, and in some instances is not at all distinguished from I. Yes, we muddle our letters through those who work with metal may know the difference better, perhaps a matter of a slight change in thickness one feels when holding a capital I versus a lowercase l. But in a drawer of type, a lot depends on who distributes letters and whether they do it well, so that letters enter the wrong compartments and there are consequences in spelling and reading. And one way or another, the entire cookie crumbles. And a world without cookies is a word without order. Though one walking through the rubble might simply continue through without much notice, because letters aren't like fjords. They don't involve the possibility of slipping into the sea or drowning. In some sense, they don't exist at all in a digital world. What I mean is that a letter is like an idea of a letter, a representation of a letter, which is a representation of a sound, which may be in collections with other letters, a representation of meaning. And it seems that everyone knows one can walk through a room without any sense at all of gathering a meaning or even gathering a remembered view, no matter how the light is streaming through the window, and whether a letter or a name or a word perhaps, or on a glass door or in a picture frame might be illuminated, because an illumination is not quite a shout, not quite a roar, but a sort of ray that one can pass through, pass over, pass under. All things pass, we say or sing, in a shower of lowercase l or uppercase air. Put the letter in the stick. Put the letter in the stick. Put the damned letter in the stick. Upside down and backwards? What does that even mean? Mind your P's and Q's, mind your B's and D's, mind your P's and Q's and B's and D's, because when it is flipped backwards, try that, a backwards flip. Can you do it? A lowercase p looks like a Q, a lowercase b looks like a D, and vice versa, which I guess means upside down and backwards. And upside down, Q looks like D, and upside down, P looks like B. We're all just voiceless fricatives on this bus. So saying mind your P's and Q's and B's and D's is like saying do the right thing, though Spike Lee might have done that more quickly and with more aplomb. Plum, 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 A, even though the movie takes longer, and now we are back in the streets. Watch the film. And towards the end of this, okay, sometimes the rollers, those operators of fidelity, covered with ink, are less than stable. Sometimes they require adjustment again and again, adjustment so that at some time the words on paper will not seem ill-adjusted. Are we all ill-adjusted, and do our visions see through the stable of words? Do our unstable words float somewhere beyond the page, through the mark, softer than metal? If print A is true, must print B be true? If A entails B, it is an intuitive idea some of us had once upon a Roma, whose near-perfect ridges disrupt the lines of the poem. just as they elevate those same lines to the status of felt things. Here is the obligation of demonstration. There, the disruption of protested enunciation. Tell me true, do you love me, Cindy Hogue? Do you fix your hair for me? Will you sail across the sea? Only if I ask you to, will you stay, my Cindy Hogue? My Cindy wind, my perfect find, come to me and ease my mind. My icy frost, my tempest tossed, you come to me at such a cost. And sweet reward shines a light. The word, impressed so tight, upon the hill will fly our kite and loose the words with each new height. I dream of ink on the page, on the hands, on the shirt, on the wall. And does ink dream a new color, or color dream a new direction? Thank you.
Wow.
Okay, and our last reader tonight is David Weiss.
Thank you, Charles. That was wonderful. So I'm David Weiss, and I'm reading from a project I started after the death of my maternal grandfather, and is a response to Alfred Tennyson's In Memoriam. 91. 91. Blended bluesy crumpets nuff their lionesses, bland rarity striped monastic flushes, or merrily vitrifying this barren bush. Slits bygone fled wrists starched, thumb tears fall by vetrose, dry merit in view, mylar tears. Scope of self-made stand, mudded beard missive, lucid lamented teeth. Blended buzzers hex this book of ours, humped vespers of camel stumps bumped, gluten stalks wave opulent in thine fly, gat nipple discharges pewter glee. Strum, cacophonic sympathy in the bark of might, verging bare breath moonbeams broad and brutaled, beauty underwritten by billion furs seas girded, and like a finer light in light. 92. Eye-wired min-max doobie conceals vain fixity, sky-vined, Delph registered sign blue. Buttress stank wafts sour spirit, way-o, spake and take the steel. Guy-mied glances grip, chance two-faced, not gathered lines with hatred blind, no. I cannot conceive Venus with arms still on. Soon I will not conceive Venus with head still on. Remembers there were gardens. One gate of innumerable gates, all to be passed through at once. Designed to die for. Exigencies team tilted in phantasmal flogged flagons laced of figments and pigments. A lens's distortion compounded, additive airings fizzle within willfully naive arithmetic grace. Thanks. That's it from me.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Wow.
So does everyone just, yay. Applause for everyone.